but I did see it.
Lavie, I can't believe this. The man, the myth, the legend, the returning guest, Mr. GCW, Brett Lauderdale, is here.
Hey,
Brett.
Gentlemen, I have arrived, and this is this my 10th appearance?
11.
You know, I really I may have let you down, Brett, because I usually do a count right before, but we're definitely in the double digits, so we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, good. I want to be. I'm trying to get to number 17, so I can be like Cena, 17-time world champion, business of the business.
Nice.
So we got to start off hot here. What's going on with the spring break? What's going on with the collective? What's going on? Maybe pulling some talent. What the hell's going on? What is going on over there?
Well, it is collective season. It's Mania season, so things always get crazy. They go in all different directions. Good stuff happens, frustrating stuff happens, but stuff is definitely going to happen, and that's what's going on right now. I feel great about spring break. It feels like this has been one of the funnest and most enjoyable kind of roads to spring break that we've had. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
sounds great.
You can. Okay, I thought I froze. Sorry about that. This has definitely been one of the most enjoyable roads to spring break that I can remember. In terms of the planets aligning and the stories coming together and the performers being available on the right dates and the performances, especially. It feels like everything's kind of been hitting. And not only I think we've got the perfect mix for spring break between stuff that's wacky and fun and good wrestling for the sickos, and it seems like there's a good buzz and people are excited. So on those fronts, that's all the things we hope for. The rest of the collective doing well also. Bloodsport, another very solid lineup, doing things that only Bloodsport can do. And our new partners and our new shows from within, everything seems to be interesting this year and fun. So that's good. And then perhaps most interesting and most excitedly, also the Juggalo Championship Wrestling show is probably going to hit 1,000 people on Friday night after spring break. So I'm I'm happy for them and really excited and interested to see what they can do on this new platform in front of so many new fans.
Bro, what a swerve, bro. Right?
Yes.
Dub, yeah.
Yeah, they've got like the perfect storm going right now and a lot of momentum. And I mean, who knew that Vince Russo's next big splash or final splash, as who knows what it is, would come by way of the Juggalos, but it seems like they've got it going right now. There's people paying attention and people checking it out, and a lot of people on the fence that are curious that want to see what it's about. So again, I'm happy for them to have a big opportunity in Vegas at the Collective to introduce what they're doing to so many new people at once.
Would you be interested in having Russo at JCW? Because he will be in Vegas that weekend. So would you be interested in him with GC Dub?
Well, of course, anything is possible. And for a cameo, why not? But I think Vince Russo he's literally living that JCW Juggalo lifestyle right now. I'm not even kidding. I think, I talk to Violent J all the time. And always about wrestling because he's obsessed with wrestling, and it sounds to me like Vince Russo is doing this all day every day, just like Violent J is. So I don't think that Vince Russo is going to be out there looking for bookings or appearances anytime soon. I think he's really enjoying what he's doing right now.
What do you think about TNA and them pulling guys, and then what do you think on the kind of the other side of the spectrum, AEW and allowing the guys to wrestle?
Well, for what it's worth, AEW has always allowed people. There's been stretches over the years where it's, they're cutting back or they're not going to let these people do that anymore. But it seems like a lot of it's been on a case-by-case basis. And even when it hasn't gone my way, GCW's way, I've always felt like, all right, well, I mean, it does somewhat make sense, even if I don't agree with it. So I feel like AEW, and I'm sure that there's times too when, we're not specifically applying to GCW where, they've pulled people where maybe it was a little more confusing than others. But I think overall, if you look at the caliber of people that AEW allows to do indies and outside work, it's commendable, that they let these people go out there, considering what's on the line. As for TNA is another company who really is, up until this point, very rarely do you hear about TNA pulling somebody. This seems to be, I don't know. Who knows what the real story is? I mean, there's a lot of speculation. Oh, well, it's not really their decision. It's WWE's decision, or it's, this or that. I mean, who really knows? Outside of, I guess TNA and Carlos themselves. But obviously, the timing's not great, and the optics are not great. And, you would hope that, you would almost hope that it is WWE telling them to pull these people for some reason, because if it's not, it is a self-inflicted wound with bad timing. And, it doesn't seem like they're really benefiting anything by pulling these people, and it's only doing harm in the eyes of the fans. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what matters the most, what the fans think. And, and also, I guess, what the locker room thinks too. If guys feel like they're getting pulled from work and money for no good reason, that does not do a lot for the morale in the locker room. So, I'm hoping that, maybe it was out of their hands, or maybe their hand was forced, and, it's something they just had to do because they had to do. Because certainly, the fans and the wrestlers don't seem to be happy about it right now.
Obviously, with GCW and AEW, like you said, you got to be able to use a bunch of AEW guys through a long period of time. So that's pretty cool that they do that. You got some returns kind of coming, like Rick Jungle Boy and stuff. So you guys definitely have your fair share of guys that they allow you to use easily.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some people that have worked with us for years, both from before they went to AEW and then and continuing when they were signed. And yeah, I mean, we've had people reach out to work with us, that never came to fruition, but not because AEW said no, just because scheduling didn't work out. So yeah, I think it's we seem to be in a good place right now where, again, as I said yesterday, I made a post on social media about, there's been some bumps in the road over the years, but, that's bound to happen when you have a relationship that's going on 6, 7, 8 years. Things are not always going to be super easy, and, there's going to be disagreements or whatnot along the way. But I'm happy. And again, I'm thankful, that AEW has been so good to us over the years.
Just tell us about One Night Only at the arena. Is that show pretty special to you? I think Ruckus will be there, which is a nice little
Ruckus.
So what's going on with One Night Only?
Yeah, Ruckus is a longtime friend of mine, and he's an indie wrestling Hall of Famer and certainly a South Philly legend. And he'll be going into the 2300 arena, or ECW arena, as some of us call it, Hall of Fame on that night. But that's yeah, of course it's special to me. For years I tried to convince myself that it wouldn't be special to me. People were always saying, "Oh, when are you guys going to go to the ECW arena?" And I wasn't, for whatever reason, it just for a variety of reasons, it just didn't sound too appealing to me. But as the years have gone by and we've gotten to do so many cool things and check things off the list, it came back around on the table this year. And I don't know, for whatever reason, it just felt like now is the right time. And yeah, now that it's happening, and I think more about it, and where I came from and where I started, and both in the business and even as a fan, of course now it's started to mean a little bit more to me now. I mean, it does actually, I mean, it does mean a lot to me, that's where I started in indie wrestling. in that building. I mean, I spent literally hundreds of nights in there, you know, both at shows and at training, um, and yeah, I mean, it's a cool place. You know, it doesn't look the same as it did when I first started, but it's the same, you know, it's the same earth, and the same, you know, that same corner of Swanson and Rittner. And I'd be a fool if I said that you know, that particular building, you know, did not and I'd be a liar if I didn't admit that was a big part of my life. So I'm happy and excited to go back.
Let me hand it over to Lavie. I know he's got some good stuff.
Yeah. So, Brett, first I want to talk about something that's like sort of like get a little bit of insight behind the curtain and how something like that plays out. So, of course, with Joey Janela's upcoming match with Brody Lee Jr., you know, Janela touched upon some sensitive things which would have had to have been planned with the mom and, of course, Junior beforehand, where Joey said, your mom already buried her husband. She doesn't want to bury her son as well. Sort of like, how does this arc develop? Like, who brings something like this up? Who agrees to it? You know, how does that play out?
Well, of course, you know, you say something like that, you know, Joey's not just shooting that off the top of his head. Of course, that's, you know, something that's discussed and cleared, you know, beforehand. And who knows, you know, without revealing too much, you know, maybe it didn't even come from Joey himself, you know, line, you know. So, you know, of course, you know, there's a fine line where you want to be tasteful and respectful to, you know, the whole situation, but also, you know, what are we doing here? We are doing pro wrestling. You know, we're doing sports entertainment. We're doing a match between Joey Janela and a 14-year-old kid with a serious, you know, wrestling, a serious position in wrestling. You know, Brody Lee Jr. I mean, he is, you know, he is wrestling royalty. You know, his from, you know, his father and everybody who supports him and who's watching this. You know, and you know, what are we doing? If we're gonna do this, we might as well go all the way with it, right? Why are we? You know, why tiptoe around it? Let's make this wrestling. And that's what we've done. And yeah, you know, of course that line, you know, in a real life sense, that would be pretty shocking. But in a wrestling sense, it's par for the course, right? So I think all parties want to make this, you know, pro wrestling. And that's where we've been going with this angle so far in the storyline. And, you know, I feel good about everything that we've done so far. As far as those two are concerned, and you know, at the same time, I just want to say Brody Lee Jr. is already at 14 years old. He's a pretty damn good performer. He has some instincts that you really can't even teach, and it's been awesome, you know, seeing him get out there in front of the crowd and come alive and do these performer things that you just. For a 14-year-old should not be able to do.
So speaking about reality and storyline, I was believing one thing till I saw your tweet about it. Maybe I was a little bit out of things for Passover, but unfortunately your Berwin Eagles Club booking, as many others, have been canceled, with AAW getting the last booking in the venue, at least for the moment. You referred to it as a fake stabbing, and that seems to have become the prevailing narrative. Like, what exactly happened here? Some people were also referring to GCW talent being involved. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I don't even know who it is, but like, what is the situation as you best understand it?
Well, maybe I should be even more clear. It's not a fake stabbing because there's no stabbing. There was no knife and nobody got stabbed. So maybe I should have been more clear about that. You know, it wasn't my show. I wasn't there, but I know tons of people that were there. You know, I know the people from the building. I've seen multiple videos of it from pretty much every angle you can have. And, you know, it's clear and it's obvious what happened, and it's disappointing. And, you know, I tried to stay out of it for, you know, and let whoever needs to handle it, because You know, again, it's not my show, it's not my business. But you know, yesterday it became my business. You know, my dates at that show, at that building, are canceled, and I didn't just have one date there. You know, I had others lined up as well that hadn't been announced yet. And you know, it's not just me. You know, I'm new there. You know, we got to do one show there, and you know, we had another one coming up in June, and then more later in the year. But there are some people who have been doing shows there for decades, and you know, all because these guys, you know, acted about as stupid as you could. You know, they assaulted a fan, and then tried to cover it up by making up a story saying there was a stabbing. Little do these idiots know, you know, they go around saying there's a stabbing. That made it even worse. You know, that takes it from a story, you know, about a fan getting in a fight at a wrestling show to getting it on TMZ and to getting it in local news and getting the attention of police and municipalities. You know, and it's not as cool and funny. You know, when the real world starts hearing about stabbings, they don't think it's funny like you know, some idiots in a wrestling locker room think it's funny, you know. And they did real damage here. They did real damage to a venue that's been that's got 20 plus years of wrestling history and additional history in that community. You know, there's more than wrestling going on there, you know, and you know, first of all, they assaulted a fan, okay, and then you know they made up a story. I mean, the assaulting a fan was enough. I mean, you watch that video; it's ridiculous. You know, I know at first, you know, the one instinct from wrestling people is like, yeah, that's what you get for fucking around or for starting shit. But then you see the video and you realize, you know, this guy was talking shit, but he didn't even throw the first punch, okay. And then you've got all these wrestlers. They could have just grabbed the guy and thrown him out the front door, but they all wanted to show how tough they were. They wanted to show how much of badasses they were, and see who could be the one to knock him down, right? All these guys taking unguarded shots at a fan. I mean, first of all, I mean, the good thing is that none of these guys could throw a hard enough punch to put him down, which is pretty fucking embarrassing. I'm sorry for my language. You know, to the fact where the guy stands there taking it all, and then he walks out. Okay, if he did stab somebody, you're just gonna let this guy leave? You're gonna throw all your punches, be unsuccessful, and then just let him leave? But anyways, let's say he did get hurt. Let's say that fan did go down, and then they all stomp him out and they all punch him. And let's say that fan gets seriously injured where he has to be, you know, taken out in an ambulance or go to the hospital or worse. You know, what have they accomplished? Do they all stand there and high five each other about how tough they are and how much of a badass they are and chant RP dub, RP dub, RP dub? I mean, these are people with fucking really low IQs doing serious damage to the wrestling business. And now they've done damage to a legendary wrestling venue. And I'm sorry, you know, like I said, I tried to stay out of it, but I mean, it's very clear. It's on video. You know, it's on video. These guys celebrated it and made a T-shirt afterwards to celebrate how stupid they are. And you know, I try to stay out of it, and it's not my business. But yesterday, it became my business, and these people should know, you know, what happened. Fans need to know what happened, and wrestling people need to know what happened because it's not cool. And it's not funny. So there you go. That's my answer about Berwin.
No, thank you. That's very helpful. I'm continuing to learn. So going back to the collective, at one point you announced spring break was over 1,000 tickets. How are things moving along now?
Yeah, I think spring break, as when I last looked, I don't know, either yesterday or the day before, we were around 1,500, and it's moving steady every day. And the last week is always the biggest surge. So I anticipate that we'll probably hit 2,000 people or more for spring break again. You know, it's a little harder to gauge this year because there's obviously and definitively a little less excitement and interest in WrestleMania, which of course leads the way for all of us. I think there's less people in Vegas this year for sure. And it's for a multitude of reasons, not just because of any perhaps diminished interest in WrestleMania, but also, the economy is challenging for many people this year. A lot of people that want to go just can't afford to go. So I think there's less people in town. Less, and that means there's less people for us to, draw on and hope for. But with that being said, even with those challenges against us, I expect that spring break will continue to, show strong sales right up until the moment the show starts. And I think, we'll either get to 2000 again or very close.
So, of course, you're busy with your own thing, but your insight into the greater business is always very much welcome. So, Slamfest, how do you think they've done so far in terms of their venue selection and the way that they've promoted some of the bigger brands that they're working with?
Well, venue selection, I mean, that's a venue I selected as well. So, it's a very nice venue. I've been there. I've run shows there. There's some serious shortcomings with the Palms and the Pearl, but nothing that would affect the fans who are watching. But there was a lot of challenges, and I mean, there's a reason we didn't go back there, and it wasn't because our shows weren't good or that our shows didn't do well. There was other issues at play that kept us from going back there. And it was offered to us. They wanted us back, but it just was not. After our experience with the Pearl Theater and the Palms last year, without a dramatic change in the way they do business, I would never go back there. That being said, I can understand why they would go there. They had a slightly different arrangement. They came in at a different angle. They're going to, I think that they've probably experienced some of the challenges I did, but I think it's, they had the benefit of being prepared for those things. I'm cool with Steve and Mojo from Paragon that are the organizers of Slamfest. They're friends of mine, or we're friendly, or whatever you want to call it, and so I've talked to them both before and after it was announced, and they're not my enemies, so I don't want to see them struggle, but certainly the way that it was rolled out, I think obviously they didn't do themselves any favors. They probably would have liked to do it in a more timely manner, but I don't think it was all. I think there were certain factors that were out of their hands, things they had to wait on, and it obviously didn't do them any favors. But hey, I'm not mad about it, right? That's their business, and we have ours going on. But they have a strong lineup. TJPW, of course, is a longtime partner of us, and I would have liked to have had them back, but they went over there this year. Stardom always does great in the United States. CMLL, I mean, I don't know how CMLL would do on its own as a standalone, running a show on a weekend in the United States. But, if there's any time that's perfect for them to be doing a show in the US, this is it. This is a great time and place to do it. Maple Leaf, I think Maple Leaf, this is a good place for them to be, but I think they're still building up their awareness, their brand awareness in the United States. So maybe, I don't know what their expectations were, but obviously, they're going against spring break on a Friday night on short notice, probably didn't do them any favors. But, again, I think Scott's still trying to kind of establish his brand to American indie fans, which he's getting there. I mean, people certainly know about it, but, people just need to get more familiar. And then House of Glory, yeah. I mean, look what they're bringing in. I mean, that doesn't even look like an indie wrestling show. It looks like an episode of AEW and WWE and NXT or whatever. The star power on House of Glory is insane. So, I think I commend everybody for bringing their best and going for it. And if you're a fan, again, if you're a fan, especially a diehard wrestling fan, it's almost too good. There's too much cool shit going on, and you can't make it to everything, which that's the worst part. If you are a diehard wrestling fan with no, allegiances or ties or anything, and you're just looking at straight up what are the shows going on, what are the lineups, who are the stars. It's almost frustrating because you want to get to more shows than you can even physically get to. So in that respect, great for the fans and good on us, wrestling promotions that are bringing our best and putting our best foot forward. This is the time to do it. It's put up or shut up. It's, this is a showcase and you show your best, and everybody seems to be doing it this year.
Speaking of partnerships, I've seen that the New Japan affiliate show under the collective will be on New Japan World. Will that also be on Triller? How does that all work?
So the original plan was to simulcast it on both Triller and New Japan World. I think there's some more options have come up, and we're still kind of figuring out what the final game plan is going to be. But of course, we want it to be successful for everybody, including New Japan and El Desperado. And, we want to have we don't want this to be a one-time event. We want this to be the start of a strong partnership. So we're going to try to figure out a way that makes this work for everybody, whether it's simulcasting on New Japan and Triller or just New Japan or whatever it ends up being. I just want to make sure that it's good for everybody. So still to be determined.
Yeah. So with new partnerships, sometimes there's only so many hours in the week, in the little WrestleMania week, which you're certainly maximizing. And there's no For the Culture this year. And last year was a little bit, of a transition with West Side Gun. How did it go with West Side Gun last year? And maybe, was it just not enough space to fit it, or maybe coming up with a different approach?
Yeah, there was good and bad last year. There was first of all, they did a great job in terms of marketing and promoting their show. They drew a huge crowd, and it was good literal business in a literal business sense. It was good to have them. There was, just like every other show, there was challenges involved, and the transition between the shows wasn't as smooth as some of the others. And, I think, and I haven't been to one of their shows lately, but I think, last year they were still very inexperienced and running shows in a production of that magnitude, especially live and within a certain, window of time that you have to do it. So I think, it might not have gone as smoothly as they would have hoped or we would have hoped. But I don't know what they're up to these days, but it's all a learning process, and they were, I think they were only on their third or fourth show when they did a show with us last year. So, I didn't necessarily expect them, I didn't expect it to be, 100% smooth. They're still figuring it out. But one thing I can say is, they absolutely do good business. The numbers don't lie. If you look at their ticket sales, you look at their merchandise sales, there's a lot of revenue going on there. I don't know what their streaming numbers look like, but I know there's people in the building and they're paying a premium for their tickets and they're buying t-shirts that are not cheap. So they're on to something, but as far as this year goes, it just didn't fit. I don't even know if they had hoped to come to Vegas this year. So I think we had, I think when we left off, it was, we'll see you when we see you. And I don't know that it ever truly came to the table for this year. We just had other options that came up. The Juggalo thing came up early in the discussions, and that kind of took one of the late night spots away. And then we also cut one spot this year on Saturday. So there was new partners and one less slot in the rotation to go around. So, it never really came to the table. But I know I'd be open to working with them again in the future if something makes sense. West Side Gun and Smoke Dizza, those are cool dudes. They love wrestling. They're very passionate about it. So those are good things. And I want to be associated with things like that.
So one of the things that's been a little bit quieter is WWE ID highlighting through GCW. Has there been conversations? Has it just not, the timing worked out recently?
In what respect?
Last year was the the different showcase events, and it felt like GCW was hosting some more WWID events or talents than it has this year.
Well, we did do the one back in August, which I guess August wasn't that recent. Now time flies. Here I am thinking August was a couple months ago, but I guess we're all the way up to April now. But yeah, I don't know. It just hasn't come up, I guess. I think the WWE ID program and the shows and the title defenses and all that, I think they certainly serve a purpose and they're productive in certain ways. But if you can't sell 500 tickets or 1,000 tickets, as part of the collective, I think they need to pick their spots. We're still doing business here at the end of the day, and they may be better served to do those events elsewhere and continue to build up the brand, and then the WWE ID brand, and then circle back with us again when the time is right. We definitely absolutely have a good relationship with WWE as far as I know anyways, and the ID program and Gabe and all the wrestlers. I just had Starboy Charlie, or Chaz as he's known now, on our show last week in LA. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing preventing anything from happening right now. It's just not happening.
Sure. So, of course, next year is WWE will be in Saudi Arabia outside of an offer, which I believe you mentioned last time you'd be open to from the region. Like, what are you thinking about, in terms of?
I would just like to make a big announcement. I'm dropping I think previously I demanded $50 million to bring the collective over. I was crunching some numbers, and I think we can make it happen for $25 million. So if the whatever the sovereign fund can make that happen, I'm willing to be flexible if they can be flexible. So aside from that, I don't know what's going to happen next year. I still think there's another shoe to drop. I don't have any inside knowledge. It's just my intuition, that there's another shoe that's going to drop. Not to say that they won't be in Saudi Arabia. I'm pretty sure that's definitely going to happen, but I think there may be more happening, even from WWE. I still feel like there's going to be a 2-day, some sort of USA and Saudi Arabia thing going on. But that's just my guess. Again, nobody's told me that. I just feel like I almost feel like it has to happen.
So yeah, no, that would be really interesting. So last question for me, and it has to include Triller. So I was pretty shocked with the PW Insider report about Adam Abdallah apparently gathering investors to make a bid on Triller TV. Obviously, Adam has worked closely with you on the Jersey City side of things. Anything you can talk about on that side? Have you gotten any information?
I mean, I don't know too much more than what I guess the public knows, other than to say I'm not sure that it's that easy. At this point, Triller is in a uncomfortable position for sure, and I'm just not so sure. I have not sat and talked with Adam about this and exactly what he's doing. I've tried to kind of stay at a distance on it because I don't want there to be any conflict, and I don't want to. I almost don't want to be involved in that discussion. But I do know that, certainly it's for sale. And I think it behooves everybody for there to be a sale, both the Triller parent company and the Triller TV wing. Obviously, there's some entanglements going on, and there's, who knows, legally speaking, what's going on. I mean, there seems, this is only stuff I've seen publicly, but there's been issues with their filings and whatnot, and you've seen numbers reported, and there's debts and this and stuff that happens when there's mergers and acquisitions and all that stuff. And, certainly, we'd all be lying if we didn't acknowledge that, it certainly did not go according to plan for them. So, yeah, I think that they've been trying to sell for some time now. And I think that there are factors on all sides holding up any potential sale with any partner. And I don't think, again, I'm not so sure that it's as easy as it sounds right now. I think some things have to happen first before anybody's going to be able to purchase it. But, you hope that whoever does end up with it, whether it's Adam or someone else, that it's someone who wants to continue the good things about it and, is passionate about it and is doing it for the right reasons. And, certainly somebody who continues to keep GCW at the forefront, of course. So I do think at some point, whenever whatever happens does happen, I think it'll ultimately be at the end of the day, I think things will continue as usual. I don't think Triller is going to suddenly, or I don't think Triller TV, as we know it in this app that we use, I don't think it's going to suddenly go off the air or disappear. I think the keys will be handed off at some point. I just don't know when that's going to happen.
Thanks,
All
John.
right. So where can we find and follow and see everything GCW and the Collective?
Well, of course, you can watch all their shows still without interruption on Triller TV for just, I don't even know how much a month. What is it? $7.99 a month? $9.99 a month? And I know there's a special coming up for if you sign up now for in time for the Collective. I think they're offering a couple free months or something of that nature, $20 off a year subscription, which is still to this day an insane deal. I think they offer a year for like what, $100 or something, or under 100. I don't know, but the deal is crazy. If you like wrestling and all this stuff that's on here, it's a truly crazy deal to buy the Triller TV yearly subscription. But all the events from the Collective will be streaming on Triller TV. All the GCWs, Bloodsport, Spring Break. You can watch the Juggalos live in their Collective debut. And of course, all the rest of our shows are also on Triller. You can certainly follow us on the artist formerly known as Twitter at GEC Wrestling _. Follow us on Instagram at Game Changer Wrestling. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us all these other great places. Hey, check out our YouTube, which we've been beefing up. We post all the recaps and hype videos and lots of free matches. Go check that out. Subscribe and do all that stuff, or follow. I don't even know what the word is on YouTube, but do that. And and certainly to keep abreast on all of the latest wrestling information, tune into the Business of the Business podcast and stay tuned to it.
Yes.
It's the best one going.
Yes, and I hope to see you in Philly at the arena. I hope to make it to that show. So I hope to see you there.
Please do. Please flag me, wave me down, and come to the show. It's going to be, in the words of DJ Hyde, a great one. Great one.
Yes, awesome. Brett, thank you so much. Appreciate it all the time, and good luck with everything.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Lavie, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you?
Follow me on X, Lavie Marg. Join our LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business, and check out Ultimate Fighters, Donald Trump, Dana White, and UFC's road to the White House.
Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next time for The Business of the Business.